Welcome to the Dragon's Library, your source for games, movies, shows, and more.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dragon's Library. So today we will be reviewing Season 3 of The Umbrella Academy, a Netflix adaptation of a graphic novel by the same name. Before we start the review proper, however, let's get some context because this is Season 3. The Umbrella Academy follows 6 of 7 siblings. On October 1st, 1989, 43 women around the world simultaneously gave birth despite not being pregnant. An eccentric billionaire named Sir Reginald Hargreaves adopted them, at least 7 of them, and turned them into superheroes. After a harsh childhood of superheroics as the Umbrella Academy, the siblings grew apart. Ben, the number 6, died at some point. Number 5 vanished mysteriously. Vanya, number 7, showed no abilities, left, and wrote a book where she outed all her family drama. And eventually, left alone, Hargreaves died. As for the characters, you get Luther. He was super strong and later had his body fused with ape DNA after an accident. Luther was the last loyal member of the Umbrella Academy. Diego, number 2, went out to be a solo vigilante. He can manipulate the path of any object he throws, and those objects are most often knives. Allison can make you do anything if she says, "Do you want to hear a secret first?" Klaus is a medium for the dead and spends the first season being haunted by Ben's ghost. 5, who rejected a name, can teleport and time travel, though he can easily lose control of the time jumps and become stuck in a foreign time period. Ben had a tentacle monster under his skin that he could unleash, although he died in some unspecified accident. And Vanya had an overwhelming control of vibrations that bordered on apocalyptic, but was suppressed by Hargreaves out of fear and unleashed at the end of the first season. The first season starts off with Reginald Hargreaves' funeral, followed by number 5 returning as a time traveler to warn them they have a few days to stop the end of the goddamn world. While they try and prevent the apocalypse, 5 is hunted by fellow agents of the Time Authority, and they eventually manage to stop it. After season 1, where it was revealed Vanya's suppressed powers and damaged mind were exploited to cause the end of the world, the gang is thrown back to Dallas in the 1960s. 5 arrives last and sees his siblings fighting soldiers so the nuclear war begins. After a lot of drama, they manage to stop the change and head back to the present, only to discover a new team in their home called the Sparrow Academy. And that catches you up to speed. This show is weird, wild, and a good time, with interesting characters, cool superhero action, and tones of family drama. So let's get into Season 3. Season 3 dives even deeper into the broken family. Hargreaves and the Sparrow Academy are revealed to be the result of the team meeting Hargreaves in the past and asking for his help. When he saw the failures they were, he decided to pick different children to adopt. The exception is Ben, who was dead for most of the series, and as a result, Hargreaves didn't meet. He's back and kind of an asshole. So after being kicked out, the team regroups and discovers that they had been murdered in this timeline. As a result, the grandfather paradox is destroying all of existence. With little time, no resources in the Sparrow Academy after them, the Umbrella Academy faces Armageddon for the 3rd time in the last few months. This season is a blast and covers a lot of things. Vanya, soon to be Victor, deals with coming out as trans and the now old child she had watched out for in Dallas. 5 and Lila, another super child who used to work for the Time Cops, try to solve the time crisis. Diego has a son dropped off to him by Lila, thank you time travel. Meanwhile, Klaus tries to reconnect with Hargreaves and accidentally allows the old man to potentially finish some sinister plan. Meanwhile, Luther has a Romeo and Juliet affair with one of the Sparrows, and Allison breaks down due to the erasure of her daughter from existence. The season is pretty good, but it does feel slightly lacking. See, season 1 and 2 both had really amazing moments, like everyone dancing in the house, the fight with 5 in the diner, Vanya's betrayal, the intro to season 2 with the whole team, the fight with Lila, Vanya and the kid. There just isn't anything that good to work with in season 3. Like, there are clearly some scenes that try and have that feel. Luther in the room with that wedding with the world falling apart, the intro fight with the Sparrows. But they all fall a little flat. The only one that comes close is with Vanya and the new number 1 in the diner. That was really cool, and I really like how Vanya's kind of come into her own with her powers and essentially becomes confident enough to become Victor, which is very nice and very interesting. Apparently it's tied up with Ellen Page and her own personal issues, so, I really like that she was able to, come out in this way. That must be great for her. The main thing, though, is the season just kind of falls a little flat aside from that. Like, Vanya's good. She's excellent when she's on screen. She's probably one of the most interesting characters, and when she becomes Victor, he is most definitely interesting. That's kind of intentional, though. the characters are all grappling with the fact that Armageddon just won't leave them alone. They even bring it up in story. And I really like the reveal with Klaus and Hargreaves, but for some reason this season it still doesn't click. Like, I get they're going for this we're tired, we've been dealing with the end of the world for what feels like forever kind of thing. It's just, I don't know, a little off. I will say the finale was near perfect, and the setup for season 4 was amazing. I liked how they kind of used Allison, because she'd always have these feelings of almost being selfish, but she acted too nice in the previous ones. She actually comes across as slightly selfish now, and I kind of like it, because there was always that undercurrent to her as the person who can literally get anything she wants just by talking. So I like the way that worked. And like I said, Victor's great. 5 is great. Klaus is a joy to watch on screen. Diego being too overly serious is kind of hilarious. The whole team is just bringing their A game here, and it's wonderful. Ben is just a jerk, though. Like, I liked him better when he was a ghost. Sorry. I'll just say it. I liked him better as a ghost. Anyway, to bring it all home, the effects are decent. Nothing amazing, but still above average. I really like the way the paradox pulses ate away at reality. As for the music, this season has an excellent soundtrack, which is typical for the show. Not as good as season 1 and 2. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. It's still really good. It's just, I feel a drop in quality here. The action is well choreographed, and the direction, well, the show has always had interesting direction. I think there are a few cool shots here or there. Like I said, most of the stuff dealing with the world being eaten away is all really nice. It's a mix of effects and directing, so I like it. I really like when Diego and Lila go into like sort of the parallel reality of the secret room in the hotel. And at first they think they've just, when they went through the door, it just like flipped a bunch of stuff in the room, but it turns out they're in an entirely different empty hotel. And there are little details you're like, this is weird. Where are they? What's going on here? And you can kind of figure out something's wrong, and I like how long it takes for them to get to it, because, like, it doesn't make sense. And even by, like, time travel standards, so it's really interesting. So, yeah, Umbrella Academy Season 3 is an 8 out of 10. It's good, but on average, not amazing like the first two, which were easily 9 out of 10 seasons. However, I do strongly recommend it, so check it out if you like superheroes, family drama, time travel, and or weird ideas. So, yeah. Alright, that was great. Moving on from my scripted things, let's get into the spoiler talk. And be warned, there are massive spoilers. Like, huge spoilers. So, you know, be a little aware of that. Anyway. So let's get started with Hargreaves. So if you haven't watched the show, you may or might not know this, but Hargreaves is actually, and stick with me here, like I said, this show is weird, a Martian insect alien who's disguised himself as a human and has been looking for what I believe to be the soul of his dead wife, which was spread across the planet, across the multiple children, and manifested across multiple virgin women that caused them to suddenly become pregnant and produce children with the unique abilities, and he's using the power from potentially her soul or maybe all of Mars's souls in order to reset the universe so he can bring his wife back and basically create his own utopia on Earth. In order to do this, and please continue to stay with me here, he needed to get seven powerful members of the children in order to drain their powers to fuel the world resetting machine that he found the portal to and built a hotel around in order to access. He couldn't send a team into it, so he got the children, which he later found out would actually be required to power the device because they had the unique particles that let him do that, that give them their abilities. However, it nearly kills them in activating it. He manages to get 8 of them to go through the portal with him, having been working with Allison, who is desperate to reset the universe so she can get her kid back. Allison comes around the last minute and ends up killing Hargreaves and hitting the big old reset button anyway, though, because, you know, outside this hotel, this fake parallel reality hotel, the entire universe is essentially gone, like all of time and space. Every possible timeline. It's all gone. So she has to pull the reset button. And when she does, she finds Hargreaves had already pre-programmed it somewhere. The others survive, but now they're missing their powers. Allison may have her powers, and she finds herself in her daughter's bedroom, because Hargreaves actually kept his promise. And Hargreaves is overlooking a now changed world, which looks more like maybe a utopia, maybe a cyberpunk dystopia, maybe a 1984 dystopia. looking out from it, what must be his wife, holding hands as they look down upon their world from a tall business tower, which looks like he owns. He seems to own a lot of the businesses. And the gang, including Ben, but not including Luther's wife. Luther's already dead at this point. Well, he was dead and then he came back. It's complicated. Klaus is involved, who's now immortal. This show is weird. Anyway, they get there, realize they don't have any of their powers. Luther realizes even his ape body, which was a genetic modification after the fact, is also gone. And the woman he married, the Sparrow, has mysteriously vanished, even though all of them were still here. She's not. So the group essentially goes there and we're like, well, what do we do then? So they start breaking off. And a few of them try and be like, guys, we should stay together. And they're all like, no, we're done. The apocalypse has stopped. We need to find our own places in this timeline. I'm out. Peace. Bye. And then little pairs, they start breaking off. Luther's going out to try and find his wife. Klaus is just like, I'm done with all this. Fives is like, we're done here. It's been nice knowing you guys. Lila and Diego go off because they're actually going to do something. The kid wasn't actually theirs. It was one of Lila's friends, and he got erased from existence, so she feels a little bad about that. But now time's reset, so it's not a big deal. Like I said, Allison's off on their own. Vanya tries to get people to stick together, but nobody listens. Ben is just off, so, And it's just this moment of, the gang's broken up. Hargreaves won. He got what he wanted. They're normal now. It's just, it's a little strange. So, this is a weird show, in case you haven't noticed. It only gets weirder as time goes on, which I find interesting. And I really like Victor goes off on his own, so that he's been dealing with some shit. I do like how the Vanya turning into Victor is just kind of a natural progression. Her family doesn't make too much of a fuss about it, which is nice. They're very accepting about it. Although, again, they're a family of mind control girl, the guy who talks to ghosts, the Batman wannabe who throws knives, the super strong guy with an ape body, and the time-traveling eternal child who's actually older than all of them combined. Oh, and the one who was dead and came back to life in a different timeline is now an asshole. Like, none of them are normal, even by superhero standards. Like, even by people who have powers, they're weirdos. And I think it's just cool. So this season is a wild ride full of loads of stuff. All over the place. So let's get started with the main plot hole. So essentially what happened is the thing that caused the divergence of the timeline. So the Sparrow Academy is obvious. Hargreaves went for different children. But the reason the grandfather paradox, which ends up destroying the whole reality, happened is because Vanya befriended this young autistic kid in the past, and his bad dad was really abusive. She became good friends with their mom. Hint, hint, more than friends. Like, they practically spell it out, but, it's the 1960s, so they don't actually spell it out because time period, that's not socially acceptable, that kind of thing. And the kid ended up accidentally absorbing some of Vanya's powers when she tried to save his life. However, she thought she had absorbed them back, but it turns out a spark of it was left and it grew over time. Vanya promised she would find him again in the future, and his mom died before Vanya came back, which caused him to have a breakdown, igniting the remaining powers. And, he ended up focusing his rage on the people he thought essentially destroyed his life and giving him this curse, which caused his powers to lash out at their mothers, which ended up killing them before they could give birth to their children, which meant they were never born. Which I do find interesting. I will freely admit, I do find it interesting. And that means they shouldn't exist, but they do. And it slowly causes this, singularity to slowly start expanding. And every time anyone does anything time-related, it grows faster and pulses and moves. Anytime anything gets absorbed directly into it, it grows and pulses. And just this cool thing where a pulse emanates outward, larger and larger areas. At first, it's like a building and a few blocks. And anyone who's not connected to, the eternally resurrected wife soul thing that I mentioned earlier has a chance of, so the field will expand outward and then it'll collapse back in on itself and people will just disintegrate into bloody mist as it reabsorbs them. And they just vanish. And it starts out with a few people in the general area being missing, and then a few dozen, then a few hundred in the state, then a few thousand in the country, then hundreds of thousands worldwide, then millions, then the buildings are collapsing. It's just this growing, escalating threat that's always in the background, always there. which is really cool. I like it. I also really find it funny with the mom, too. Like, so basically, Hargreaves didn't want a parent at all. If any of this is great. If you gathered one thing, Hargreaves is kind of an asshole. He's a horrible father, and he didn't really care about them. The chimp butler assistant, second nanny to the kids, even left in this timeline because Hargreaves wanted to push them for the mission that's supposed to kill them so he can create his perfect timeline. And the chimp knew about it, or at least suspected things about it, so he gave the kids some pills, and they essentially got Hargreaves drugged up forever, had him sign away everything to them so that he wouldn't harm them. Because he couldn't bring himself to stop his old friend for himself, anyway. I really like that. Hargreaves is a lot more determined because he saw how his other team failed, and so he pushes this team a lot harder. And you can really see it. They seem like a better version of the Umbrella Academy on the surface. You know, they didn't break apart. They have like all these lucrative. They're the Umbrella Academy in their prime with all the brand sponsorships and marketing and all the superhero parody relation to superhero films. You know, the whole thing where they correlate superheroes and media to superhero film franchises, that kind of thing. It's the same little thing, but essentially it's basically what did the Umbrella Academy that stayed in their prime all the way to adulthood and become world famous. That's essentially it. And the Umbrella Academy was world famous. They still are doing so. That's why Vanya's book about like airing her family's dirty laundry was a bestseller. She had trouble selling it eventually, but when it was revealed that number 7 reveals the horrors of the Umbrella Academy, it was just like, it was essentially a really, really big deal. They were essentially celebrities, and Vanya helped take them down a peg, combined with the band slowly splitting up over the years, and Hargreaves falling into despair. In their timeline, he never got to do this. In the Sparrow timeline, he had the desire to do it, which I personally find interesting. In addition to that, we also had so basically the robot mom found like the singularity ball when it was really small in the basement, and she's essentially a robot. So she gazed upon what was essentially an infinite collapsing mass of black holes, and her mind as a like advanced cyborg or an advanced synthoid could not process this properly, and so she essentially, basically, she was programmed with a personality, and from what I've been able to gather, her mind was overloaded by something she could not fully process, but could never stop analyzing, and essentially equated it to the only humanly programmed thing that she had available to her, which was that she believed it to be a god. There's even a moment where she whips out a flamethrower to try and protect it from the Umbrella and Sparrow Academies when they finally push out their bullshit and try and contain it. That doesn't work because Vanya and Lila, who can copy powers, use their combined abilities to try and suppress it so that one of the other people is this like floating cube that talks in like murmurs. And they try and contain it in him because he apparently is able to absorb energy and use psychic attacks. But unfortunately, it works. It actually does work. It contains the force of the expansions. However, it is highly based on vibrations, so when they're doing a celebratory, one of the sparrows, gives him a toast and clanks against him, and the vibrations hit just the right frequency, and he blows up. And then implodes. And then they lose half. And then they lose all but 2 of the team members. So yeah, not great. Not great at all. Ben's basically the only one. Ben and the Gravity Girl, whose name escapes me in the moment, who Luther got into sort of a Romeo and Juliet relationship with throughout the season, which I found kind of interesting. He had a weird plot line, which I believe was carried over from the comic, which I've read the first volume of the comics. And that was the whole him and Allison were dating, which is sort of incest. They're not technically related. I mean, I don't even want to get into how relationships work when you're technically different mothers, but reincarnated from the soul of a dead wife of your adopted father. Let's just say it's close enough. It's similar enough that it's weird. And then he's dating his what do you even call this? She's technically a similar, same process as Allison and adopted, but she's part of a different batch from a different timeline. It feels less weird. Let's put it that way. It feels less weird in this one. You have to think harder about it for it to be weird. He wasn't raised with her as his sister, if that makes sense. Still a little awkward, but hey. They end up being hey, we're not going to try and stop this. Every time he tries, and they even call this out. One of the things interesting about the series is how tired everyone is. Throughout the series, everybody mentions that every time they've tried to stop Armageddon, they've made it worse. So the first time, Fives went into the future and discovered that everything was destroyed and ended up spending like 60 years there because he couldn't go back because his power shorted out and got him locked in that time period. He was eventually hired by the Time Authority Agency and acted as an assassin for them until he figured out a way to get back to his own time period using their technology and calculating out the right formula. This led to him trying to prevent the Armageddon, but in doing so, they got thrown back to Dallas when they actually unleashed a nuclear Armageddon decades prior. Okay, that's even worse. And because there was still some level of life on the planet, like cockroaches and stuff. Basically, the first Armageddon was the moon crashing in. The second one was complete nuclear bombardment of the planet at the height of the Cold War, which is not great. Because that's essentially a complete destruction for the whole life on Earth. Like, Five still had oxygen. He could still, somebody put on Five's Earth could still live there. Somebody put on the Earth after Dallas could not live there. And then, after they stopped that, they created Grandfather Paradox due to stopping it, due to Vanya's action specifically. She's always wrapped up in the Armageddon. It's a recurring motif, essentially. And that leads to the fact that they now have the Grandfather Paradox, not only eating away at Earth, but all of time and space, which means even other alien species don't exist anymore. And it's later revealed that Five actually created the Time Authority. And, well, he gets the tattoo, and he loses his left arm, and it's essentially guaranteed that he's eventually become the old version of himself, and they might be stuck in a self-sustaining time loop, which is, quite frankly, fascinating. I wonder what Fives is going to do now that he's aware of it. Like, is he going to be able to stop it? Did his words from his future self be able to change anything? Probably not, because he lost his arm and he got the tattoo, which means, he's essentially fulfilled, like, most of the requirements. Now all he has to do is go found the time agency and grow up old. Like, that's it. That's all he has to do. And I really do wonder, is he going to just... Oh, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating time travel paradox. Can you break through free from a timeline that seems to be self-sustaining itself? Because we know you can change time. But Fives' fate seems almost like a macro time, if that makes sense. Like a time on top of time, that's self-sustaining. So can you change individual timelines, but the timeline of timelines might be stable? It's interesting. I really can't wait to see where they go with this. Fives' story has always been really fascinating. He's a great character, very snarky. He has this, like, sort of, I know better than everyone around me. And it's not, like, entirely wrong. He was one of the time agency's best agents who, like, murder people who, try to interfere with timeline, make sure things play event. He's even JFK's shooter in this, universe. Because JFK had to die and the shooter got damaged, so he had to deal with it. And it's just like, yeah, he's more competent than basically everyone else around him. And he kind of has a reason to look at them, like, with a bit of disdain. Because, he is more competent than them. I can't deny that. Meanwhile, you got Victor, who is definitely the powerhouse of the team. There's this moment where, as Vanya, she goes to talk with number one. She basically appears outside of one of his, like, rallies and says, yeah, come look at me. She's like, gives him a look and is like, let's meet. And he's like, what are you doing here? It's like, I'd like to meet in private. It's like, why would I do that? Because I want to talk. It's like, fine, let's go talk. So they go to a diner, and this is like the best scene in the whole season. I'm not even joking. This scene is amazing. I love it. And Vanya, at this time, she's not Victor yet. He's not Victor yet. You have her sitting across from number one, and they're just talking with coffee. He's like, all right. And Vanya's just like, okay, I know you're going to come after us. Please just leave us alone. We're trying to deal with our family stuff. They don't know about the Grandfather Paradox yet at this point. And we just want to live our lives. And he's like, sorry, you embarrassed my team during the fight. Like, we won, but we didn't dominate you. And that's an embarrassment. If it ever got out, it'd be in trouble. So we're going to come find you. We're going to kick your asses. We are not going to let you rest on this. I have to. It's for our reputation. Because if it ever got out that you actually put up a threat to us, we'd have to deal with some bullshit on our turf. And we can't handle competitors on our turf. So you will get the hell out of the city, or we will deal with you. And you get the impression they're going to hunt him down for a rematch regardless. And Vanya's like, we have other problems right now. Our family is screwed up. Yours seems to actually have things together to an extent. Which, they have their own problems, but that's beside the point. And Victor's like, well, no. And Vanya's like, no, you are going to do it. Because if you don't, and he's like, and why is that? You know, that cocky, like, it's like, because if you don't, I'm going to show up to your rally tomorrow. And as she starts talking, the lights start shaking, the cup starts shaking, and one starts looking around like, what the fuck? And, because Vanya showed off a bit of her power, and the gravity girl had to throw her out of the way before she blew up everyone. Vanya's very untrained, but she has, like, immense power, and she just, like, exercises and control, like, every vibrating thing in the room and amplifying it, and there's just this moment of, like, the entire room coming alive. She's like, and I will challenge you to a fight. And you will lose. Because I won't have to hold back in a building. Because I won't be around everyone else. Because you will lose in front of all your fans. And then you can pick up the shards of your reputation and shove them up your ass. And there's just this moment of one looking like, oh shit. And he's like, how are you number 7? You should have been number 1. It's like, and Vanya just looks at him like tired. It's just like, I don't give a shit. It is a fantastic scene. Ellen Page does a great job playing Vanya here. I seriously, just fantastic. Fantastic work. It's probably the best scene. It's nearly on par with a lot of the other scenes. Like I say, there are a lot of good moments in this one. You also had the moment where Hargreaves betrays Luther because he wanted to kill them, because nobody wanted to go do anything, so he kills Luther to unite everyone to avenge his killer. Makes it seem like one of the Guardians who are guarding the Parallel Hotel. They're basically knights and ninja and stuff like that. Made out of insects, because weirdness. They're all made out of, like, evil alien cockroaches or something. Because apparently, whatever sentient higher power exists in this universe really loves cockroaches and insects. Hope you're not an insectophobe. That'd be poor. That'd be very poor. Yeah. I can't really think of anything else. I mean, Diego gets his son, who's kind of like just a pyromaniac monster. But it's not actually his son, it's just Lila's friend's son, and the moment she finally tells him, and they find him, it's just like, oh, thank goodness you're safe, and then the time wave immediately erases him, and Lila's like, oh my god, tell my friend! And he goes like, I can't believe you faked me having a son. She's like, well, I wanted to give you a test drive to see how you would do. It's just like, Lila, I understand you were raised as an assassin by a woman to whom kindness was a foreign concept, but seriously, this is effed up. Anyway, that's basically it. Aside from Klaus gets on this like road trip and he learns he's immortal. Klaus's whole thing is he's been able to come back from death a few times, and he's essentially a medium. He can summon ghosts. In the books, he can also has telekinesis, but I don't think they've actually shown that here. He just summons ghosts and stuff like that, and now he's immortal. He's basically the king of death, so if he wants to, he can just pop back into his body. And even after his body was erased, Hargreaves even killed him and said he was too great of a threat. And he thanked him for getting him out of that situation, but he doesn't really need him anymore. He leaves him to die in the time erasure, and Klaus actually kills himself before he's erased, so he goes to the afterlife. And then he just manages to pull himself back together in the hotel, even with all of time and space erased from existence. Which is just hilarious. It's the moment of like Hargreaves being like, how are you here? It's like, death is kind of my house. I can come and go as I please, you know? It's just like, Klaus is great. He's just so over the top. I love it. You can really tell the actor is having a lot of fun with him. But yeah, all in all, this is a good season. Like I said before, there are good moments. There's nothing that made me go, wow. Like, I remember watching the first season of Umbrella Academy, and it was that moment I was like, oh, Netflix does some good shit. Like, it was, like, I'd already known they'd done Stranger Things. I had seen a few other shows, but that was the moment that made me go, oh, this is like Netflix. This feels like Netflix. I don't think something like this would have been made on other channels. This just felt like something that could only come from Netflix. And it still has that feel. It still very much feels like a Netflix production. But at the same time, it's just a little bit less than the sum of its parts. And I can't help but feel like I'm being harsh on it. But I did rewatch season 1 and 2, and I'm not just blinded by that. I'm just blinded by my memories of it. Season 1 and season 2 were actually that good. And they all had these moments where the show just came alive. 5 killing them all to Istanbul. The Istanbul song was just fantastic. Vanya's betrayal. The house scene where they're all dancing. Oh, God, Hazy Shade of Winter. The soundtrack was slightly better. The action was slightly better. And then season 2 just kicked it up a notch where you had them all in this time period and that opening shot with a nuclear war and all of them fighting together and cloud summoning armies of ghosts. It was just insane. But there's no moment that makes you go, wow, I'm going to remember that forever. There really isn't. And that's a shame. I feel like I should have had a moment like that. I feel like some came close, but they just didn't reach the high. Now, granted, I will say, on average, this show is pretty similar, but it didn't have those same high spikes to me, and that really does take out from the experience. So, yeah. Okay, moving on from the spoiler talk, let's talk about what's coming up next week. So, next week, I will be reviewing Ordinary Monsters, and then on Thursday, we will have Thor, Love and Thunder. Ordinary Monsters is a book, by the way. It's an interesting historical fantasy by J.M. Miro. Came up on my radar, and I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. Historical fantasy is kind of my jam. So, yeah, that's going great. And we are also currently playing through The Quarry on both Twitch and YouTube, although I'm thinking of just starting to stream on Twitch and then posting the videos to YouTube, so I kind of want my stuff in one place, but also partially because of connection. Ever since I started doing dual streaming to 2 different sites, it started having connection problems, and I kind of want to minimize those, so I might be streaming on Twitch instead of YouTube. You can find links to both of those in the description, both my YouTube channel and my Twitch channel. So check me out if you're interested in that. I stream those games on Tuesday and Thursday. Then I, finish a game and take a bit of a break. I am only doing it 2 weeks at a time. Then I have to stop each week, each third week, so I can be on call for my job. But aside from that, by the time this goes on YouTube, I will be in the middle of call. If you're listening to this on Buzzsprout, then I will currently be streaming The Quarry for that same week. So, yeah. Hope you guys check me out there. Seriously, I would very much appreciate it. And I think that's about it. See you guys next time. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and thank you for listening to the Dragon's Library. Please subscribe to this podcast to be notified of new episodes. The Dragon's Library releases new episodes Tuesday and Friday each week, and you can follow us on Twitter at dragon_library2. If you want to suggest an episode topic, my email is in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for all your support.